Schools in the U.S. teach English every day, but why not a second language? Bilingualism's advantages are insurmountable to America today. Specifically the Spanish language, which has an overwhelmingly increasing influence on our society. Hispanics constitute 17% of the nation's population, and 60% of these married households have children under the age of 18. These children represent a growing number of Spanish-English bilinguals. Spanish is already a part of our country, so why not take advantage of the situation? It is for these reasons why we should teach our children Spanish as a second language. Bilingualism can create better students. Children are in a prime environment, and Spanish has a wide influence in America. Spanish should be taught to our children for these three reasons. And for my first reason is bilingualism can create better students. Mark Lycan of the Department for Special Education at Haifa University in Haifa, Israel, states that several studies have indicated significant influences of bilingualism on cognitive development. There's no evidence that bilingualism affects intelligence, but that's not the argument. The argument is bilingualism has a positive influence on cognitive function. These functions include general creativity and flexibility. It has been found that balanced bilingual students test better than their monolingual peers in these areas. Bilingual students are superior to the monolingual students in the ability to focus attention and ignore misleading cues. In the same article, Lycan explains the research by Ballistock has pointed out an advantage among bilingual children in tasks that require executive processing. An executive function is a set of mental processes that connects past experiences to present situations. This means that bilingual children are better at resolving an issue. Executive functions are also seen at an earlier age in bilingual children. An article by Catherine DeLange, published in 2012, DeLange explains the flexibility of a bilingual person's mental processes. A specific function that bilingual people excel at is flexibility. Their brains are more pliable than a monolingual person's. A study done by Viorica Mariana at Northwest University in Evanston, Illinois, explains why. The study took Russian-English bilingualists and placed objects in front of them and asked them to pick up a marker, specifically a marker. Many of these objects had similar sounds. What they found was when they asked the person to pick up the marker, their eyes would go to another object, but then come back to the correct object. And so what this shows is bilingual speakers are constantly competing to find the right word in their mind, and this creates a more flexible mind. The bilingual person is able to ignore distracting information while performing a task. Bilingualism can create better students. It enhances the brain's executive functions, flexibility, and creativity, all of which benefit a growing mind, and all of which create better problem solvers. I've discussed bilingualism's benefits. The benefits, however, cannot be acquired without the proper environment. This is my second point. Children are in the prime environment for learning a second language. In an article by Dave Robson in New Scientist, published in 2013, Robson discussed the myth that children are better at learning than adults. Most people grew up with the idea that as you get older, it becomes more difficult to learn. Psychologists also assume this as well. The key issue being that children and adults are in entirely different environments. During a test at West Virginia's Pahoon lab at Concordia University in Montreal, Canada, nearly 1,000 volunteers of all ages learned to juggle over 6 training sessions. And what was found was that 60 to 80-year-olds began hesitantly, but by the end they were outperforming the 5 to 10-year-olds. In the same article by Dave Robson in New Scientist, published in 2013, Ed Cook, a cognitive scientist who has won many memory contests, is quoted saying, "A child's sole occupation is learning to speak and move around. If an adult had that kind of time to spend on an attentive learning, I'd be very disappointed if they did not do a good job." Time is valuable for a language. When and how schools choose to teach a subject affects how a student learns. Children are in the prime environment to be taught a second language. The environment is not going to be available to them forever. Schools must take advantage of this learning environment. I've discussed the benefits of a second language, but why teach Spanish, or not French? The reason of my third point being that Spanish language is the most influential language next to English in America. In the total population of 285 million, people over the age of 5, 35 million of those spoke Spanish at home. The only language that's spoken more is English, and that number dwarfs any other number with 228 million. The next language under Spanish is Chinese with 2,600,000. And these numbers are taken into account. It just shows the influence that Spanish language has on our country. 1 in every 8 households speaks Spanish. The Spanish that is spoken, however, is not influenced by academia. Therefore, the Spanish-English bilingualists are speaking a more slang-oriented Spanish. All students, that means that all students would benefit from having Spanish in our schools. In an article by the U.S. Census Bureau on July 30th, 2012, for National Hispanic Heritage Month, the influence of Hispanic culture is obvious. 53 million of the Hispanic population of the U.S. 53 million is the Hispanic population of the U.S. as of July 2012. That's 17% of the total population. And there was a 2.2% increase in the Hispanic population from 2011 to 2012. Just these two statistics show an increasing influence on American society. Spanish is not going to become less prevalent, it's becoming more prevalent as more Hispanics immigrate to the U.S. As the Hispanic population increases, the need for Spanish as a second language does too. Spanish is widely influential in America. Spanish and bilingualism together have the ability to benefit our country. And it's for these reasons that we should integrate these two ideas into our schools. Bilingualism can create better students. It allows for more flexible and creative minds. Children are in the prime environment. This is exactly what our schools provide, and that is exactly why our schools should teach Spanish as a second language. Spanish language is widely influential in America. So I would ask that you leave here with a greater understanding of this subject. Have a conversation about it. Maybe follow that urge to learn a second language and discuss this issue, because discussion is the key. Without discussion, this issue will die. And I would hope that if there is a vote on this later on, or you have the opportunity to speak on this issue, this speech will help influence you. I hope that someday we will teach Spanish as a second language. Spanish could be taught, as I said, should be taught as a second language.